Volusia County, the sheriff's office and FBI arresting dozens of people tied to a motorcycle gang. The sheriff tells News 6 this is part of a major statewide investigation into the members of the Mongols.
It started as just another busy Saturday during Florida's famous Bike Week. The RaceTrac gas station in New Smyrna Beach was packed with riders and families grabbing fuel and snacks. Then, in a matter of seconds, a simple scuffle exploded into chaos. Shouts turned to gunfire, sending people diving for cover. By the end of that night, law enforcement across Florida was mobilizing for one of the biggest coordinated crackdowns the state has seen in years. They gave it a name that sounded almost playful, but it carried a serious message: Operation Mongolian Beef. What followed wasn't just about one shooting. It was a sweeping investigation that stretched across multiple counties and even another state, leading to 28 arrests, the seizure of dozens of weapons, and the use of a rare charge most people have never heard of. In this video, we'll break down exactly what happened that day, how this massive operation came together, and the questions investigators still haven't answered. What happened and why it matters. On March 8, 2025, during Florida's legendary Bike Week, crowds packed the streets of New Smyrna Beach, a city known for its mix of tourists, bikers, and families. At around midday, chaos erupted at the RaceTrac gas station on State Road 44, a spot usually known for quick pit stops and coffee runs. In a flash, what began as a heated confrontation turned violent. 2 people were shot, their injuries thankfully not life-threatening, but the scene sent shockwaves through the crowd and the surrounding area. Police and first responders rushed in, locking down the area as panicked witnesses scattered. By the end of that day, authorities had one man in custody, 41-year-old Clinton Neal Walker, facing initial state charges connected to the shooting. His arrest was only the beginning. This wasn't just another late-night bar fight or isolated incident. It happened in broad daylight, at a public place filled with families and tourists, during one of Florida's biggest annual events. That single burst of violence triggered an investigation that quickly expanded beyond one city, leading to a statewide operation and even searches outside Florida. It showed just how deeply rooted and far-reaching the problem really was, and why this case grabbed the attention of local and federal law enforcement alike. The March 8th timeline. The incident unfolded quickly and chaotically. In the middle of Bike Week, the RaceTrac on State Road 44 was buzzing with bikers and travelers. Witnesses later told investigators that a heated argument broke out between 2 groups, drawing a crowd almost instantly. What started as yelling and shoving escalated fast. Then, without warning, gunshots rang out. As soon as the shooting started, panic set in. People ran for cover, motorcycles were abandoned, and cars sped away in every direction. By the time New Smyrna Beach police arrived, many of those involved had already fled the scene. Officers found 2 people injured and rushed them to the hospital. Thankfully, both survived. Police moved quickly to secure the area and gather whatever evidence they could. But answers didn't come easy. Officers detained Clinton Neal Walker, 41, later that same day, charging him with initial offenses connected to the violence. His arrest marked the first official step in the case. Still, major questions remained. How many people had actually fired weapons? Which groups were involved? Who started it? At first, even law enforcement didn't know. With so many bikers and bystanders scattered across the area, the only way forward was to dig into surveillance footage, witness statements, and cell phone videos frame by frame. This painstaking review would reveal just how big the confrontation truly was, and why local police quickly realized they needed help from state and federal agencies to handle what was about to become a major multi-county investigation. From one arrest to a statewide operation. At first, the case seemed like it might stay local. One arrest, a violent clash, and a lot of unanswered questions. But as investigators began piecing everything together, it quickly grew beyond the reach of a single department. Detectives started by collecting every scrap of video they could find. Surveillance from the RaceTrac, cell phone clips from bystanders, and nearby traffic cameras. They matched this with license plate data and eyewitness reports to trace who was there and where they went after the shooting. The picture that emerged was far bigger than anyone expected. The scale of involvement forced local authorities to bring in federal partners, including the FBI. Together, they began planning a coordinated sweep, targeting everyone tied to the March 8th violence. This effort became known as Operation Mongolian Beef. Before dawn on July 2, 2025, teams executed simultaneous raids across multiple Florida counties, and even in another state. By the end of the day, 28 people were under arrest, with warrants issued for 31 in total. At the press conference announcing the results, officials revealed that 3 suspects were still on the run at that time. Instead of trying to determine exactly who fired each shot, which can be nearly impossible in a chaotic shootout with dozens of people, investigators turned to an unusual legal tool, Florida's aggravated rioting law. This statute allowed prosecutors to hold everyone accountable for participating in a violent, organized disturbance, especially one involving weapons and serious injuries. It's a rarely used charge at this scale, showing just how seriously authorities treated the case. What started as a single arrest had now grown into a statewide, multi-agency crackdown, aimed at stopping future violence before it could erupt again. Inside Operation Mongolian Beef. When the raids rolled out before sunrise on July 2, 2025, they weren't random arrests. They were the result of months of careful planning. Authorities executed 14 search warrants at the exact same time, hitting key locations tied to the March 8th shootout. The most high-profile target was the Mongols Motorcycle Club clubhouse in Edgewater, believed to be a hub for some of the people involved in the violence. But the sweep didn't stop there. Homes and properties were searched across several Florida counties, 4 in Volusia, 3 in Brevard, 2 in Miami-Dade, 2 in Polk, and 1 in Palm Beach. This case even stretched beyond state lines, with a warrant carried out in Chesterfield County, Virginia, showing just how far the network reached. The operation was powered by an enormous coalition of agencies. Leading the charge was the Volusia Sheriff's Office, working closely with multiple divisions of the FBI, including field offices in Jacksonville, Tampa, Miami, Richmond, Newark, Columbia, and Charlotte. They were joined by the U.S. Marshals Service Homeland Security Investigations, HSI, the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Middle District of Florida, and a long list of local police and sheriff's departments across the state. Officials were clear in their public statements. This was not just a symbolic show of force. The goal was to prevent another violent outbreak like the one on March 8th, to dismantle the network behind it, and to send a direct message to rival biker groups that such public violence would face an overwhelming, coordinated response. This wasn't just about cleaning up after a crime. It was about stopping the next one before it started. What investigators seized, the hard numbers. When officials revealed the results of Operation Mongolian Beef, the numbers alone showed the seriousness of this case. The morning raids were not just about making arrests. They were designed to strip away the tools of violence that fueled the March 8th shootout and prevent another explosive incident during future events like Bike Week. Over the course of the coordinated sweep, investigators seized a massive stockpile of weapons. According to statements from the Volusia Sheriff's Office and multiple news outlets, 38 handguns and 15 long guns were recovered. These weren't just ordinary firearms. They included pistols, rifles, and shotguns, some of which were found to be modified or illegally possessed. For law enforcement, this was a crucial breakthrough because every weapon provided a possible link to the violence that erupted at the RaceTrac that day. But the raids didn't stop at guns. Officers also uncovered roughly $10,000 in cash, believed to be connected to ongoing criminal activities, along with narcotics that included marijuana, methamphetamine, and fentanyl. While these drugs weren't the central focus of the case, their discovery helped prosecutors establish a bigger picture of organized activity, showing that the people involved were connected through more than just a violent rivalry. From a legal standpoint, these seizures are far more than trophies of a successful operation. They serve as critical evidence in the court. Every recovered gun can be traced, every phone and communication device can be analyzed, and even the exact locations where items were found can help prosecutors place specific individuals at the scene on March 8th. This is especially important given the unusual charge at the heart of the case, aggravated rioting. In a chaotic brawl with dozens of people, it's nearly impossible to prove who fired which bullet. Instead, Prosecutors aimed to prove participation in the violent event itself, and the combination of firearms, communications data, and other physical evidence helps them show the level of organization and intent behind that day's violence. For investigators, the guns and drugs are tangible proof of what was at stake. For the community, they're a chilling reminder of what could have happened if this crackdown hadn't taken place. Imagine those weapons still in circulation, waiting for the next confrontation. This is why officials were so clear during their press conference. This was about stopping the cycle, not just punishing what had already happened. By taking these weapons and resources out of the equation, authorities believe they've weakened the networks that fueled the March 8th chaos. Though, as they hinted, the investigation is far from over. The charge that tied it together. One of the most unusual parts of Operation Mongolian Beef isn't just the number of arrests or the size of the operation. It's the charge prosecutors decided to use. Instead of focusing only on who fired the shots at the racetrack on March 8th, investigators turned to a powerful but rarely used Florida law, aggravated rioting, under Florida Statute Section 870.01. This charge is a second-degree felony, which means anyone convicted could face up to 15 years in prison. But what makes it so important here is how it works. Prosecutors don't have to prove exactly which individual fired a weapon or who caused each specific injury. Instead, they must show that a large group came together to engage in a violent disturbance and that certain serious factors were present. For a case to qualify as aggravated rioting, the state must prove a few key things. First, there has to be a riot, which Florida law defines as 3 or more people acting together in violent and disorderly conduct. From there, it becomes aggravated when additional factors are involved, like 25 or more participants, deadly weapons being displayed or used, or serious bodily harm being caused to someone who wasn't part of the violence, such as an innocent bystander. This legal approach is especially useful in chaotic situations like the March 8th shootout. Picture the scene. Dozens of people, multiple firearms going off, witnesses running for cover, and video footage that's shaky and incomplete. In a case like that, trying to pinpoint exactly who fired which bullet can take years and may never produce a clear answer. If investigators focused only on traditional charges like attempted murder or assault with a firearm, there's a real chance key players could walk free simply because there wasn't enough evidence to tie them to a specific gunshot. By using the aggravated rioting statute, prosecutors are essentially holding everyone accountable for participating in the organized chaos itself. It recognizes that the violence wasn't just the result of 1 or 2 individuals, but rather a collective act that endangered the public. This strategy also strengthens the case when dealing with groups like motorcycle clubs, where members often operate as a unit and may close ranks to protect each other from law enforcement. Authorities made it clear during their press conference that this wasn't just about punishing the past. It was about setting a precedent, showing that if a group brings public violence into a community, the entire group can face serious consequences. For Florida, it's a bold move, and it will now be up to the courts to decide how effectively this law can be used to bring justice in a case this complex. Who confronted whom? Rivalry context. As investigators dug deeper into the March 8th shootout, it became clear this wasn't just a random fight that spiraled out of control. According to official statements from law enforcement, the confrontation involved members of 2 rival motorcycle clubs, the Mongols Motorcycle Club and the Warlocks Motorcycle Club. These are not casual riding groups. Both have long histories and strong reputations, and tensions between them have flared before. Volusia County Sheriff Mike Chitwood confirmed during the July 2nd press briefing that the March 8th violence was the result of clashing factions, with the Mongols and Warlocks at the center of it. The altercation wasn't about a personal dispute or a single individual. It was the latest chapter in an ongoing rivalry that has been building over time. To understand why this matters, you have to look back to an earlier incident that raised red flags for local law enforcement. In 2024, there was another high-profile confrontation involving members of the Mongols and at least 1 Warlocks member in Titusville, Florida, near the intersection of U.S. Highway 1 and State Road 50. That clash didn't grab national headlines, but it did lead to multiple arrests and prompted police to warn that tensions between the groups were escalating. Sheriff Chitwood referenced this past incident when discussing the March 8th shooting, using it as evidence that this wasn't an isolated event, but part of a pattern of ongoing hostility. The 2024 case showed investigators what they might be dealing with: organized motorcycle clubs with rivalries that can turn violent, especially during large gatherings like Bike Week, when many members from different chapters are in the same area. For local authorities, this history explained why the March 8th incident was so dangerous. When rival groups with dozens of members, many of them armed, collide in a crowded public place, the risk to innocent bystanders skyrockets. This background also helps explain why officials were so determined to act quickly and decisively after the RaceTrac shooting. They weren't just responding to one day's violence, they were intervening in a growing feud before it spilled over into more communities. By citing both the March 8th shootout and the earlier Titusville clash, Sheriff Chitwood and other officials painted a clear picture. This was a repeated problem, and without strong action, it was only a matter of time before another confrontation erupted, possibly with even deadlier consequences. The link between the Mongols and warlocks adds another layer to the case. It shows that Operation Mongolian Beef wasn't simply about arresting individuals for what happened on March 8th. It was about disrupting a cycle of organized violence, sending a message to both groups, and making it clear that law enforcement is watching closely. For the public, it highlights the reality that these rivalries are not just about club pride or territory. They can, and do, spill into public spaces, threatening everyone caught in the crossfire. What we know about those arrested. When Operation Mongolian Beef was announced on July 2, 2025, officials revealed the full scope of their crackdown. According to the joint release from the FBI and the Volusia Sheriff's Office, a total of 31 individuals were formally charged in connection with the March 8th violence. By the time of the press conference, 28 of those suspects were already in custody, while 3 remained at large, with warrants issued for their arrest. Authorities have not released every personal detail about the suspects, but some key information was shared publicly. Local TV station WESH2 News reported that among those arrested was the president of the Mongols Motorcycle Club's Volusia County chapter. This particular arrest stood out because it pointed to high-level involvement and suggested that the March 8th violence was not just the work of a few rogue members, but rather part of an organized structure with leadership overseeing local activities. Another significant detail was that not all arrests took place in Volusia County, where the initial shooting occurred. Several suspects were picked up during simultaneous raids in other Florida counties, including Brevard, Miami-Dade, Polk, and Palm Beach, and even one out-of-state arrest in Chesterfield County, Virginia. This reinforced what investigators had been saying from the start. The network of people involved extended well beyond the immediate area of New Smyrna Beach. The FBI emphasized during the briefing that this was a multi-level operation. Some of those arrested were believed to have been directly involved in the March 8th shootout, while others allegedly played supporting roles, such as planning, coordinating, or providing resources to the individuals on the ground that day. It's important to note, as officials themselves stressed, that these individuals are charged, not convicted. Under the law, everyone arrested is presumed innocent until proven guilty in court. Their cases will move through the legal system, with evidence presented to determine guilt or innocence. By carefully releasing only confirmed facts, investigators have made it clear that they're focused on building airtight cases. The message is twofold. They want the public to know that decisive action is being taken, while also showing the courts and defense attorneys that this operation was rooted in documented evidence, not speculation. This measured approach reflects the seriousness of the case. With 31 suspects facing charges, and some potentially linked to organized club leadership, every step forward will be closely watched by both the public and the justice system. For now, the arrests mark a turning point in the investigation, signaling that law enforcement is prepared to dismantle every layer of the network responsible for the March 8th violence. The evidence pipeline, how the case may proceed. One of the biggest challenges investigators faced after the March 8th shootout was sorting through the chaos to figure out exactly who was there, what role they played, and how to connect each suspect to the violent events that unfolded at the RaceTrac. According to officials, this process has been painstaking and incredibly detailed. Investigators revealed that they reviewed every single frame of available video footage, from the gas station security cameras to cell phone recordings, provided by bystanders who captured the fight as it erupted. Each clip was studied frame by frame, with investigators using advanced technology to enhance images, identify individuals, and track their movements throughout the incident. This slow, careful review allowed law enforcement to map out the timeline and understand how the violence escalated moment by moment. Beyond video, prosecutors in a case like this rely on several other categories of forensic evidence. Geolocation data, often pulled from cell phones, can confirm whether a suspect was at the scene during the shooting. Communication records, such as text messages, group chats, or call logs, can reveal whether the violence was coordinated in advance or escalated spontaneously. The recovery of weapons is equally crucial, not just to show possession, but to connect certain firearms to the March 8th event through ballistics testing and fingerprints. Even seemingly small details, like where a weapon was found during the July 2nd raids, can help establish a suspect's involvement. For aggravated rioting charges, one of the most important elements prosecutors must prove is participation and coordinated action. This means showing that individuals weren't just bystanders, but were actively involved in creating or escalating the disturbance. Patterns of movement, such as multiple people arriving together, acting as a group, and leaving the scene in sync, can serve as powerful evidence of organized behavior rather than random chaos. Now that the arrests have been made, the next steps will play out in state court. The suspects will go through arraignments where formal charges are read, followed by the discovery phase, during which both the prosecution and defense review all evidence gathered so far. While investigators have already shared some of their findings with the public, much of the case remains under wraps as the legal process moves forward. Officials have been clear on one point: the investigation is still active, and more evidence could surface as analysts continue to dig through digital records, communications, and physical evidence collected during the July 2nd operation. This methodical approach reflects how seriously authorities are treating the case. By building their prosecution piece by piece, they aim to ensure that when the case finally goes before a judge and jury, it will stand up to the highest level of scrutiny. No loopholes, no shortcuts, just solid, verifiable proof of what happened on March 8th. Community impact and Bike Week security. The March 8th shootout didn't just leave behind shell casings and police tape. It left a deep mark on the community, shaking public confidence during one of Florida's biggest tourism events. Bike Week is known for its lively atmosphere, drawing thousands of visitors from across the country. Families, motorcycle enthusiasts, and local businesses all depend on the event. But when gunfire erupted in broad daylight at a crowded gas station, it sent a chilling message. Even the most festive gatherings can turn dangerous in an instant. Local officials have been very vocal about this case because of what it represents. Volusia County Sheriff Mike Chitwood and federal partners made it clear during their press conference that this was a zero-tolerance moment. They emphasized that public spaces must remain safe, and violence, especially violence that endangers innocent bystanders, will be met with an overwhelming and united response. The operation wasn't just about arrests. It was also about reassuring the public that law enforcement is fully prepared to prevent future incidents. This case also highlighted the power of collaboration. Agencies at the county, state, and federal levels came together, sharing intelligence and resources to tackle a problem that no single department could handle alone. That kind of teamwork is now expected to become standard practice, especially during large-scale events like Bike Week, Spring Break, and holiday gatherings where massive crowds create unique safety challenges. For local businesses and families, the message was clear. While the March 8th incident was frightening, the response proved that law enforcement is committed to staying ahead of potential threats. The hope is that by showing such a strong, coordinated reaction, groups who might consider starting trouble will think twice before bringing violence into a public setting. The community now moves forward with a stronger sense of awareness and vigilance. While Bike Week will continue to be a celebration of motorcycle culture and tourism, the shadow of March 8th will linger as a reminder of why security must always remain a top priority. Final takeaways. The March 8th gunfire at a new Smyrna Beach gas station was the spark that ignited one of Florida's most far-reaching law enforcement operations in recent years. What began as a single violent confrontation led to statewide raids, the arrest of 28 individuals, and the seizure of dozens of weapons and drugs. At the heart of this case is a bold legal strategy, using Florida's aggravated rioting statute to hold everyone involved in the chaos accountable, not just the ones who pulled the trigger. This approach sends a powerful message that organized group violence will face an equally organized and forceful response. As the investigation continues and the court process begins, one thing is clear. Operation Mongolian Beef was more than just a crackdown. It was a statement. It showed how quickly local and federal agencies can unite to protect the public and stop a cycle of violence before it spreads further. And ultimately, this case comes down to one powerful truth. When chaos is collective, the law can be collective too. This operation will now serve as a test of how far Florida can go in keeping its communities safe when organized violence erupts.